go on to number 7. I really like this. Outreach works when it's personal.
Yeah, I mean, this is the humanity argument again, which is, I'm arguing for humanity. That's funny. This is me arguing with you guys to care about people. So you could very easily create like automations to write emails and, whatever. But like, it is not going to connect at the level of really caring about what someone is doing. I always think about the artist mix engineer relationship as like, you want them to feel like you are part of their team, not outside of the team in like an orbit, right? Like you're on the planet, not like a satellite planet. Because that is the ideal relationship. And again, like you mentioned, there's a way to weaponize everything I'm saying. If you're a narcissistic person, if you're sociopathic, like you're going to take everything I'm saying and use it in your own terrible, unique way. And if you are that person, I hope you get help. We could use less of you. But for the people that are genuine, that are just trying to make a living, that are trying to do the thing, that do care, they just haven't found a way or a voice or someone to unlock it for them. This is who I'm speaking to here. And when you're on the team of the artist, you're kind of like inseparable from the vision. It's like, oh, we got to call Dee Kei because he gets it. You know what I mean? Like that's what you want people to say about you. Like they get me. I feel comfortable around them. They totally get what we're doing. To get someone to say that is a lot of work. It's not just easy, and a lot of work could just be like a 3-hour conversation you guys had where you really connected because you were really listening, whatever it may be. You want people to feel, you want the artist to feel that you get them. And all of this, like, this is sort of exists on a continuum of getting, doing, and finishing work. To get the work, we're talking outreach. To do the work, we're talking mixing. And to finish the work is wrapping up, delivering the files, whatever. But it's not a linear process that starts and ends. It's a process that actually loops. It's continual. If an artist only has one song in their whole career, let's hope it's a big one. But most likely, they're going to have hundreds of songs in their career. So getting the work, doing the work, finishing the work loops back around to getting new work, new record, new EP, new single, whatever, and doing that. And so it's looping forever. And so if the beginning, the introduction to you, the business owner, the future partner of their business, creative partner, or business partner even, if it starts off cold and sterile and looks like you copied and pasted it, or you did copy and paste it, and it's just ignoring and overlooking so much of what they're about, you've already started the process, step 1 of getting at like a 1%. And maybe a 0%, maybe a percent where they're just going to completely ignore you. You'll never get to the doing phase with that artist. And then in the same way, let's say you have gone through the getting, doing, finishing. And let's say at the finishing stage, it's cold, it's not personal, or the doing phase is not personal. Like at any one of those phases, when you remove humanity from it, you are risking that connection, that bonding. And so I wrote outreach works when it's personal because people want to know about getting clients. And it's like, well, you should be connecting with those people and don't copy and paste it. Because 1, you'll get flagged on Instagram if you do it, but 2, like it's pretty easy to tell.
Yeah. I love this. Some references for this for the listener who wants to learn more is one of my favorite books of all time, Bob Burg's The Go-Giver, as well as Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. People respond to sincere attention. As a practical use case, like I sometimes am hyper aware, overly aware of how the person that I'm talking to is someone that could potentially give me money later. And I have to manually suppress like the sales pitchy thing and just try to be human and connect with them at a sincere level. And I think even though I'm overly aware of that I'm doing this manually and like manually overriding, it still works if I'm trying to be sincere. Like I don't think people should feel guilty about like, like, oh, I'm being so inauthentic. No, like if you make the effort to connect with people, that does come across. And I think that this whole thing of like the removal of commoditization, bringing humanity back into it, caring and building trust, I think is like such a beautiful thing. Let's go to the next thing here. I was trying to think of a segue.
There it is.
Put the pressure. Now I was trying to think of a segue.
I actually thought you were doing it because I go, oh my God, this kind of connects right to the next one.
All right, let's go to the next thing. I was thinking of, I can't imagine, like, there's this concept that I love, and I don't mean to, be overly philosophical about this, but like, in Christian scripture, there's never an example of another man convincing another man. It's nothing ever that, it doesn't matter if you're religious. It's just like a cool anecdote. Man can't convince man. Man has to hear something that another man says, and then they think through it and they convince themselves, right? Which goes into the next thing. Sales is serving, not convincing.
Right out of the Bible.
Yeah, straight out of the Bible.
Imagine, maybe in like 100 years, there might be a new version.
No, there already is. The Trump's Bible. It is already out there.
Right. Yeah, there we go. That's right. So sales is serving, not convincing. I think I had to use the word sales in this conversation just to freak people out. So sorry if that went through your body and you felt weird hearing the word sales. I did that on purpose. You need to hear that word. You need to get comfortable with what that word is and can mean. And then you need to redefine it in a way that works for you. If you're scared of that word, you're going to be scared of doing it and therefore getting any clients. So we can be all cute about it and call it getting clients, which actually sounds more inhumane. Like, what are we, like roping them, like catching them in a net? Like, how are we getting them? I think, sure, use that word, but understand that what you're doing is a process called sales. It's actually not a moment. It is a process. So sales is a process, and it's a process of, again, we've talked about this a bunch of times now, but reiteration is important. It's about serving continually, listening, responding, building relationships, forming that into an agreement. And then if that agreement is agreed upon, you start working on something. Now, when you start working on something, people like to call that sales. Like, oh, I got the sale. But if you're only thinking of sales as that moment, you will be rushing to the end. I have started working with people this year that I've known for 7 years, that have known about me for 7 years, that have considered working with me for 7 years. And we didn't start working until now. If I had went into this being like, I need to sell this person, in the way that I was kind of referring to how a lot of people view sales, like, I need to close this deal right now. This person just followed me today, and now I need to get them to work to pay $8,000 for a coaching program. Like, that is a wild thought to have. And it's only one that's going to give you anxiety, and it's only one that's going to make you look, sound, feel like a transactional person. And if you aren't narcissistic or sociopathic and you aren't trying to be that way, you will come off that way just by nature of feeling like the only part of this sales process is the closing. Part of a sales process in all sales speaking is like nurturing. I love that the word nurturing is actually in most of the lexicon of sales, because nurturing and care are the same thing. Sitting with someone and understanding what they need, one, is going to help you refine your service and how you speak about it. Two, it might actually lead to eventually deciding what offering you could offer them, them being comfortable enough to buy from you, and then you making a deal with that person and then closing that deal, which is a sale. So inherent to the process of sales is serving. It's not about convincing. Convincing happens when you're trying to get to the end of the sales process faster. And again, if you're like, well, like, most people are going to be doing this, they're like, oh, this is the first time I ever even thought about this. And now they're all hungry to get their first sale. Be mindful and careful. If you're starting from zero, you were at zero yesterday. So don't try to get to 100 tomorrow. Like, this is a practice. Every process you need to practice. It's like a dance. You need to learn how to do this well. And you're not going to be great at it. And the harder you are at pushing for someone to buy something, the more you're going to detract them. Like the same force you push is the same force or the same force you try to pull is the same amount of force that they're going to pull away. So don't look at it as convincing. Look at it as serving. Try to put yourself at ease, knowing that this might not happen today or even this year, or even in 5 years, and just be okay with that. And instead, increase the amount of people that know about you and that are speaking to you. And you won't be as hungry for one person because you'll have other opportunities that are all bubbling to the surface at different times.
Yeah. The major theme of this entire show so far, this episode so far, has been the removal of fast transactional, vapid relationships, and again, bringing humanity back into it, actually caring. One of a very simple anecdote that I've discovered is I take not a lot of effort. I'm going to say it's more than the average person's effort, but it's still not a lot of effort. I downloaded like a Chrome plugin that downloads every single birthday that it's connected to my Facebook and puts them on my Google Calendar. So I have a separate calendar for birthdays. And then I have like for other communities too. Like, so it's like even birthdays of parents of my kids' coaches, like the kids that I coach for baseball or whatever, like T-ball, and like church stuff or like whatever it is. And even like colleagues and clients, I try to be very mindful of people's birthdays. You have no idea. Like it doesn't happen all the time. But I'll just say birthday. And it's like from a Facebook friend of someone from high school that does not do music. And they've just watched, like we've seen each other over the years. I'll say, as very sincere, happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day. That's all it is. Something like that. Maybe it's a little bit more personalized. Hope you're well. Sometimes, this happens way too often, I'll be like, hey, I have a referral for you, actually. Thank you for the birthday wishes. I actually have someone that's been interested in working. Can you talk to them? Or like, if it is a past client, be like, Dee Kei, wow, like I actually needed to talk to you because I have an album coming up that needs to be mixed. I'll be like, all I do is say happy birthday. Just like try to bring a little human into it. It's so easy.
Dude,
it's something so simple.
I mean, I was thinking about this before our call, and I was just thinking about, what about you has resonated with me so much. And I think that you also carry that. Well, first of all, I do the exact same thing with birthdays and I didn't know that. So I go, that checks another box. So I love this guy, but it is such a simple thing. Like I think at the root of you and what I think resonated with me most is that you also have that willingness, appreciation for, and need to care for other people. I noticed that you like brought a snack in the second I sat down. You were very like caring about the type of coffee, like the overall experience. And that really showed in how you acted, and even where this podcast has gotten to. Like it has to come from care, and care is being observant and aware. And so part of being observant is like, this is a moment for this person. This is a special day for this person. Why are birthdays important? It's really not clear, but it's like, it is an important day and we all agree with that. And it
the
is
patriarchy.
Like,
no, just kidding.
Yeah, that's exactly. Cancel birthdays is the clip that I want to cut here. No, but I personally love birthdays. I'm a big geek with it. Like it's a nice moment for me to reflect, to bring friends around a table, have dinner, share what I appreciate about them, vice versa, and just like have a moment of like real appreciation for the life that I have, the friends that I have, the situation I'm in, etc. And when people write to you, whether they make a story, whether they comment, whether they DM, message you for a birthday, I think it matters. I want to believe that it has an effect on that person emotionally, even in the smallest way. Even if they say they don't care about it, it's like, I cared enough to reach out. And this isn't manipulative. I genuinely am like, I love birthdays so much, and I want to make sure that you know that I'm aware of yours. And I hope that you're enjoying it so much if you are. And I've even gone as far as like people, close friends that are like, I don't even like birthdays. I'm like, well, I love them and I would love to like, you know, take you out or do something. And we always end up having a great day. You know what I mean? So I think that again, we're not leaping to, what Ford said. It's like if you ask people what they wanted, they might ask for a faster horse. People might not be like, yeah, like messaging me on my birthday like matters a lot or I care about it at all. Or, especially guys, I feel like they're like, yeah, whatever, like just another day, got to keep grinding or whatever bullshit. But I think that like it matters. You've made it another year. Life is an important thing and you're an important person to me. So therefore, I'm going to show that to you. And if you go in with that genuine intention, not a like, I heard this on a podcast, so this is how I'm going to get work, I think you'll receive that same energy back. But I see you doing this and I just wanted to call that out that I really appreciate it about you. And I'm a big birthday fan and my birthday's coming up, just so everyone knows, December 4th. Text
I'm
me.
going to write it down. I'm gonna write it down. And I miss a lot of people, I'm sure. Like I don't have everyone.
Oh yeah.
down. But
I
as
feel
soon as I
bad when
see
I
it,
do now.
every
Yeah.
time I see it on someone's story, I'll try to like text them happy birthday. And then what it does is Apple will then be like, do you want to add this birthday to that contact? And then I won't
Yeah.
miss it the next year. That's before we move on to these last few, which does turn a little bit in topics this because we've been on like humanity, caring, nurturing this vibe. I want to ask you a question about this. To someone that is thinking strategically, possibly over strategically, how does someone learn to care more? Because sometimes, and I'm projecting here, sometimes this care, like giving more care and attention, feels almost 100% effort. Like the difference between the person that doesn't care about the details and like focusing on caring and not like, is it more than effort? You've mentioned things like awareness and practice. So I'm going to rephrase the question better. How can people learn to care more? And what does it feel like to care?
That's such a good question. I think like, my mom, when I was like probably 4 or 5 years old, was like, you should be a teacher. Like she kind of saw that I just had that maybe more natural in me to like, be friends with like my friends and ask them all these questions about what was going on. And like, if they got into a fight with their parents in like 8th grade or something, like I would be like upset for them. You know what I mean? Like, so, it maybe came a little more naturally, actually like in inverse to the situation I was in my home. It was almost a response to that probably. But there was many years ago, this book came out about empathy for like designers. And I was like, this is a fascinating topic. And I heard the writer give a speech, lecture at a design event. And so probably a decade ago. And I remember reading it and was like, this is like going to be the most sociopathic shit ever. But again, it can be used that way. So many things can be weaponized. But I think when I read that book, it was like, oh, wow, it unlocked to me more ways to be empathetic, to understand, to care. Like, and then I realized, oh, this is really just a skill that you have. And it's like, what? Now look at now we could zoom out and look at any skill. When you first learned guitar or drums or how to sing or how to mix, it wasn't easy. You may have fallen into it and stumbled around for a bit, but like if you were actually in the pursuit of excellence of something, there's no way that was just easy the whole time. There were tough nights, there was practice, there was failure, there was learnings, there was successes, all wrapped in the effort to get to from point A to point B. And so to think that like something as important as care, something as delicate as care, something that requires so much of the individual is just like given to you and not something that you need to be aware of or practice or like be mindful about is absurd. Like you gotta realize that like this stuff takes work. And part of that is just work on yourself to be open. It's not actually like work in the outside world, which is sort of like the sociopathic side of it. It's like, it's work on the inside of like, can I show up not stressed to this meeting for someone I want to get to know. Going to your house, right? If I was like nervous and preoccupied about 100 other things the first time we met, it would have been harder to connect. And so it's like, it wasn't about me going and being like, what do I have to say to him for him to think I care? As much as like, I want to care about people. I do that is my goal. Who do I need to be that person that can like accept that care and also give that care as needed, without pouring out my whole cup. But so getting into a state of openness, there's tons of techniques and meditations and therapy and all of the things that you need to do to feel a little bit more whole as a person. And then also, like I said, great questioning. Being able to ask great questions is a major part of this. Because by learning, hearing an answer to a question allows you to then explore more or judge or close the conversation down or just reflect on your own experience. And one of those choices works well and the rest tend to not.
Going back and calling back to one of the first points that we talked about, right? I think it's fair to admit that caring for people and becoming someone that is a people person is partially do you want to say a gift, like a natural part of some people, right? And then it's not so natural for other people's. If we lean too heavily on that, then I feel like we become powerless to it and we lose the drive to try to become more caring oriented. It's beyond a gift. So it's like, I think you made it clear, like it is a skill that can be developed. And to put it into layman's term, to kind of summarize what you said, starts with awareness, which goes into tools and practical, like practice, and then self-reflection, questioning yourself, including, and I think it goes back again, the recall to what you want, like alignment with what you want, right? If you actually wanted to be a mixer, then possibly learning to care for someone is one of those things that you're willing to do in order to get there, right? If you really wanted to. Or maybe you might find out that you actually don't want to be a mixer if that's a big hurdle.
Yeah.
Or you just want to do it as a hobby. I don't know.
That was the thought I had last night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm like, I'm going to rewrite all of these. But it was like, you should always know what you're getting into. That's kind of like the macro thing here. And it's like, like part of mixing is caring for people. If you don't feel really capable of doing that, and part of mixing is listening, and part of mixing is like, hearing the same song over and over again. It's like, if you don't like any of that stuff or don't want to learn to appreciate doing that, it's not for you. Every job comes with an upside downside. And also running your own business comes with a major upside downside. And we're going to get to that one if you want to elegantly transition to the CEO when we can. But like that, it comes with other stuff. And so if you don't want to be that thing, you can be an employee. That works as well. And there's plenty of people that need that.
Yes. The next point may need a little bit of background, if you can provide that for people that have not read The E-Myth, for example. But number 10, this is fantastic. We're shifting gears here. Think like a CEO, not a technician. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a technician?
Yeah, so if you think about the way a business is made up, something I always tell my clients, I go, there's two people that work at your business. There's the person who owns the business and there's the person that's mixing. The mixer is the technician. They are just doing the technical work to create the product/output of the business and then deliver that output. But actually, when you're delivering the output, the other guy steps in, the CEO steps in and goes, here's the final product, right? So there's a person behind the scenes, behind the curtain, and there's a person in front of the curtain. And you're actually playing both of those roles. Now, that role splits even more when you talk about chief marketing officer, chief design officer, chief executive officer, chief operations, chief financial officer. These are all roles focused on the operations of a business. Technician is just one of them. And a lot of people are like, I'm a mixer. So they only focus on the technical side of the business. But then you're ignoring these other parts of the business. And so the reason I made this one sound as extreme as that is like, think like a CEO, not a technician. Obviously, that doesn't mean ever. When you're mixing, you don't need to be thinking like a CEO. But there should be moments where the CEO comes in the room and is like, hey, like, that's not really what they were saying. that's not really what I sold them. That's not really what the conversation was about. Because the CEO is taking the sales calls. They're taking the meetings with people. They're networking. They're out in the world. And the technicians in the box, and they're in the studio, and there's no lights and no windows. I mean, and they're just like crunching away to create an artifact. And so I think really how I would refine this would be like, think like wear multiple hats. You're not just a technician, is really ultimately what this is about. And if you want to be a business owner, to the point I was making before, you need to think more broadly about what your responsibilities actually are.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like the technician side of my brain is like getting really nerdy with the T4 optical cell and the LA2A, you know, like, and the different revisions of that optical cell and how you can.
And dude, that's needed. Like, I want that person in my company, right? Like, so imagine now, when I say wear multiple hats, imagine you could split yourself into 5 different people. One of those people should care a lot about that.
Yeah.
But everyone doesn't need to care about that. But someone needs to care about that.
And that's like
the person that cares about that, I don't really want them out in the world talking to artists about the LA2A. Like, it's just not going to resonate. I want the person that is charismatic, that is open, that cares, that is listening, that knows what the business can offer, that's flexible, able to, create agreements and boundaries. I want that person out in the world. And then when it comes down to the person who loves this compressor, that EQ, geeks out about all the features and the presets and whatever, that person should be in the studio. They should be working. And so it's like, I always tell people, I go, arguably, you could find someone who's so good at mixing and hire them at your company, and you could be all the other roles, right? And reverse, you could hire someone to do all the other roles and you could be just the mixer. But at the end of the day, if it's just you have to do all of these things. And so you might as well be aware of what they are, what it takes, and step into that role. And that's really kind of the core of what I offer as a coach is like, let me show you what each hat looks like. Let's make a hat for you, custom to you, and like really run you through the paces of practicing those, wearing those hats.
Yeah. Brief examples. Do you think every single song that Jason Joshua mixes, he's doing 100% of the work? Like at an eventual point, there's some scalability with assistants or other people working on it that has to happen. And last thing I want to say about this real briefly is one of the reasons why we care so much about the human side, the CEO brain side of this, is because the problem that the E-Myth says is like most people that start small businesses they start bakeries and they start different stores and restaurants because they're great chefs and great, like they're very skilled technicians. Like that's not the problem. Like if you're wanting to be a mixer, it's like you being a great technician is usually not the problem that kills the business. It's almost 100% like the lack of CEO, the lack of manager. And that's why we talk so much about it.
That's why point one was the mixes aren't the problem, your systems are. It's like, you got it. Cool. Yeah. Now what?
Number 11, I'm deeply passionate about too. I'm going to shut up though. The industry isn't impossible. It's misunderstood.
Cool. The industry isn't impossible. It's misunderstood. So I think that a mindset a lot of people carry is like, there's winners and losers here, and I'm in the loser category. And like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to the other side. And there isn't enough work, and there's not enough this, and there's not enough that. And,
the cynicism is killing me.
And I think that if you say it's impossible, then where do we go from there other than dismantling the fact that it's impossible? And so in that statement is the reframe. Is it impossible, or do you not understand it well? And, there's 120,000 songs released daily, maybe more is only going to increase. Like there's opportunity. It's just a matter of finding the opportunity, creating the systems to find that opportunity. And if you, at the core of your being and your ethos is this is impossible, well, then it's impossible. And if you say, I don't fully understand this part and that part and how to do this or that, now there's an opportunity for growth. And I see both clients come in. I see the client that will believe it's impossible and continue to believe that until the end. I see people that come and say, I don't understand it, but I want to. And they learn more towards the end. And then there's people that will make the shift from impossible to possible, and, but at the end of the day, the most successful people I find are the ones that come in knowing that there's things they don't know, are okay with the fact that they don't know it and want to learn. And it's that mentality of there's things that I don't know, but I don't think it's impossible. And I'm willing to invest the time, the money, the effort to learn. That's where the people really learn and grow.
Before we move on to the next one, I want to end this segment with one of my favorite quotes of all time from C.S. Lewis. There are always plenty of rivals to our work. We're always falling in love or quarreling, looking for jobs or fearing to lose them, getting ill and recovering, following public affairs. If we let ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end before we can really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while the conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come.
Could not be more true.
And again, that mindset thing, right? Number 12, most famous engineers were lucky. Stop copying them. I love that so much.
So we covered this a little bit. I think that we covered this a little bit before. What I would tap on here is so much of the engineers that you see are not translated. They're not in the business of translating their learnings, their story, their path down to you. They're not doing that. That's not their job. Like I said, don't make content for mix engineers. They're not doing that. They're listening to the advice. But by way of them telling their story, it's there's a few things that happen. If they're much older engineers, there was fewer. There was more opportunity. There was more money. So that path isn't exactly the same as yours. If it's current engineers, but they're very successful, they're busy working. They're not necessarily translating. Yes, they might do a mix with the masters or something like that, but they're not giving everything away. There is so much. A career can't be summed up in an hour-long interview, a 2-day weekend, or anything like that. It's a lifetime of work. And so when people are looking at engineers now, they're trying to copy what they're seeing, what they've seen in the past, what people are saying. And it's really important to build your own career, create your own luck. If luck is preparedness, meeting opportunity, then be prepared for opportunities when they come. And then also create opportunity for yourself. That is what every engineer has done, the speed of which has differed for each person. The opportunities have differed. The who that artist was, how big that artist became, how much money the opportunity had, all of those things vary. But if you want to be lucky, quote unquote, like them, stop copying what they did or what you think they did, and start building your own preparedness and opportunity for this luck to happen for yourself.
What's so fascinating is if I were to bring up a personal narrative and insecurity of mine, is that I even brought up to you the last time we hung out, is there's a little bit of unaddressed insecurity about having come up as an engineer in a totally non-traditional way. More as business person first, which has been to my benefit in a lot of different ways. But it's I wasn't ever someone's assistant. I didn't come up the traditional route other than having gone to school for it. But you're right. I'm doing my own thing. And at the end of the day, everybody that I've ever sought advice from, it's what should I do? And they're every single person. And there's just do your own thing. You're doing fine.
Literally. Yeah. At one point it's do you really want the exact same life as someone? That's kind of weird. It sounds like a movie. What is the value there, really? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I'm oh yeah, growing up, it's oh, I wish I was in that band or that person. But it feels almost juvenile to want someone else's life because it's really discounting our own life. Like there's so many days, Evan will come over and we'll work together, and there's just some moments where we're doing something and I just go, dude, life is so cool. And I genuinely mean it. I'm like, this is so cool. I go, we just, with my best friend, we're working on stuff. We're making creative projects for people. We're helping people. We just got pizza. We're going to watch a movie. And like, you know what I mean? Like, this is kind of rad. Tomorrow I'm going to be on a podcast or what, it's just like, this is a good life and it's my life. It's not, your life. It's not Evan's life. It's uniquely mine, and yes, there's moments where you look at someone else and you go, man, like that's so cool that they got that thing. And I think I'd like to transition into your imposter syndrome as a compass, which is the next point. But I want you to say, because you're announcing these titles a lot nicer than I am. Because I think this comparison trap is where we really get stuck.
So number 13, you brought it up. Your imposter syndrome is a compass. The exact place you feel insecure is usually the next thing you need to grow into. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So the imposter syndrome is this interesting term that I've heard as a manager of design teams. I hear as a coach to mix engineers. I hear for people that are doing really any sort of work. I'm biased to the creative work. But the thing is, I kind of want to I don't want to say I don't believe in it, but I think that there's a little bit of there's a relationship with the concept that I think we can navigate differently. So if we're saying imposter syndrome, one, that sounds so real and clinical and medical and it has to be real because it has syndrome attached to it, which is really risky because it's out the gate being this is a real thing. You have to believe it. Okay. So now people are oh shit, I have this or I don't have it. And if I have it, oh my God, I need to buy this book about this thing and I need to go to this talk about. All right, hold on. What is the imposter syndrome really doing functionally? Or the concept of the imposter syndrome? I show up to your house, and this is not a real example, but I'm going to use this as an example. I show up to your house, and okay, even better. I show up to this podcast, and in my head I go, I'm not a good coach, and I don't know what I'm talking about, and no one is going to get value out of this. And everything I have to say is dumb, and I'm going to stumble because I've never done a podcast before, and right? That are the seeds of the thing that we are haphazardly labeling imposter syndrome. It is just narrative doubts about the thing that you're doing and why things should not work out for you, why you should be kept in this sort of pit. Now, I wrote that your imposter syndrome is a compass because you can use it in a positive way. If you're noticing that you're feeling whatever you're defining as the imposter syndrome, first, break apart what it is that you're actually saying, and then use that as a compass to direct you towards not saying those things again, ideally, right? That slow process of rewriting narratives. But if I say, well, I've never done a podcast before, I could rewrite that to, well, I've had many conversations before. You know what I mean? And it's fine. That's all this is. Or if I say, no one's going to find any value for what I'm saying, I could say, well, I had hundreds of people say the opposite. Or, you know what I mean? You can systematically go through this thing and realize okay, maybe what this is pointing me towards is I say, I don't think there's any value to this. And when I try to disprove it, I go, I've only had one person ever say that this stuff was valuable. Okay, well, what do we do there? Maybe I need to find more people. Maybe I need to get out there more and have more people hear what I'm talking about to validate that. Now, these are all just examples. I don't actually believe this stuff. I believe other messed up things about myself, but this one I'm confident in. The reason I didn't show up today feeling the imposter syndrome is that I deeply believe, and I'll die on the hill of my belief, that I do help people, that I And I know that because I show up and I care for them. I try to distill information to them that is as seamless and easy as possible. One of my core customer archetypes is the provider who is the father of a child, the husband who's a mixed engineer, who's really trying to provide and be that main provider in their family. And I know that I'm after the chase of perfecting a business that allows that to happen day in and day out in every decision I make. So going in with that fire into a podcast is like, I can rest assured this isn't going to go off the rails because I know my true intention and I know what's in my heart and I know my purpose. I think when you don't have purpose and you maybe are being a little bit like, I'm just trying to close deals, I just need to get work. And like, it is this very transactional thing. You're going to feel bad about what you're doing and what you're after. And honestly, you should, because maybe it isn't really aligned with who you are. And that's fine. That's literally why I still have a business. But it's like that realignment is important. And if you're saying like, I don't feel good enough or smart enough or whatever, there's so many narratives we can unpack to really unearth what you're very summatively calling imposter syndrome. I feel like imposter syndrome is so dangerous because it is a box of a ton of insecurities. It's not just one thing that you can solve for. So unpack that and then use it as a directional educational tool of like, all right, well, I don't feel like enough people have said my work is good enough. That's cool. Maybe we need to find more people. So then the next question is like, what do you want to do to attract more people? And start solving for it. And the more you solve for your problems, the more confident you feel. It has a direct correlation. I think a lot of people dwell in their problems and then they don't see progress. And then they're like, well, clearly I was right. And really, if you want to get out of a funk, spend the time committed to bettering yourself and going after the thing that you really believe in. And I promise you, you'll feel even a little bit better for doing that.
I'm remembering a Twitch streamer, I forgot who, and it's almost non-relevant here. But I remember him saying, like, someone asking him, how would you give it, like, how do you pick up on ways to improve yourself? And he's like, oh, the way he said it's like, oh, it's so simple. Like, you know how when a friend tells you their problem, the answer is so obvious? Just say your own problems out loud and think about it as if you're saying it to yourself. And then all of a sudden the answers become obvious, which is like, he said it way too simply, but I think this is like a tool to do that, right? Like seeing your imposter syndrome as a guide and then thinking about it in the way of like, okay, like I'm feeling this way. And one of the way that I word this similar idea within my own world and in my podcast is like clearing my conscience, like, and whatever it takes to clear conscience. Like if I'm feeling dumb, I should probably study, you know? And like, right. Or if I'm, like you said, like if it's too transactional, if I don't care enough, that's going to present itself and hurt my conscience in whatever way. But I think this is like a fantastic tool to do exactly what this random Twitch streamer said this one time I saw him for 30 seconds. Like a tool to try to look at yourself in the third person and to objectively become more aware of the next steps. Love that. There's two more left. Hey, go ahead.
Yes. I'll just say like, it's sad how hard it is for us to look at ourselves, to really see ourselves. And I think part of the answer to how do I do this for other people is like, well, are you even able to do it for yourself? Like, if you're able to ask yourself hard questions, well, it's the same rule applies for the other person. Like, can you ask them hard questions? I have to do that all the time with clients. I do believe I've gotten better at introspection as a result of routinely doing it for other people. It's easy to also not get better at it, but it's like asking someone the same questions, prying into them. I go, I need to be doing this for myself too. You know what I mean? And it is one and the same. To care for someone else is to care for yourself. All the same rules apply. Can you listen to yourself? Can you ask hard questions of yourself? And can you accept, most importantly, we could do this with other people, hard with ourselves. Can you accept that there is something that person isn't satisfied with internally that they want to change? Can you accept that without judging that? a lot of people can accept it if I say to you, I don't love my penmanship, and you're like, oh, that's fine, dude. That's like not a big deal. In myself, I might be like, I can't even go outside because of it. You know what I mean? And so like, it's wild how different that is, right? And so like, if you can demonstrate acceptance to other people, that's really important, but you have to be able to do that to yourself, because that's like the best practice you can get is like, if you're continually accepting your flaws or the things that you want to improve, however you want to frame it, and working through that over time, you'll accept when the artist also doesn't know how to communicate X, Y, or Z, and you could accept that it's going to take them a second to get there. So it's like, it's all one and the same. And yeah.
It's really hard to do, but I think it's a really good tool. There's two left. One that I missed that you pointed out to me. I apologize. Number 9. And I think number 9 and 14 kind of go hand in hand. So we'll close with these two. We skipped number 9 if you were paying attention. Number 9 is boundaries protect your creativity. I really love the way that you worded that.
Dude, this one, oh man. I mention Evan all the time because it's my best friend and I want everyone to know he exists. But him and I have talked about this so many times. Just like, it's so hard to do. It's so hard to set boundaries for yourself, your diet, like your fitness routine, and then bringing that into a business context where like people just want to be liked and you're dealing with all that stuff. It's like, I'm going to tell Dee Kei that, I'm only doing 1 round of revisions or something. Like, and I'm going to stick to that. And I'm not going to be afraid to say that or whatever. I'm not advocating for 1 round of revisions, but you get the point. Like, setting a boundary on something, whether it's the time of day that I work, what the scope actually is, like, boundaries are a tool. And I don't want to use like psychological talk too much. I know a lot of people criticize that. Like, boundaries is used a lot in the psychological world. And I feel like it's weaponized as well, as like, I'm just going to say things that I want and that's it. And that's my boundaries. But it's like, this in business is a agreement, right? I've told a friend many years ago, business is relationships and agreements. You have strong relationships with people and you're forming agreements. Now, sometimes those agreements are not spoken out loud. And we can call that agreement a boundary. They're unspoken. I just assume, well, I don't assume. I actually don't even care whether or not you know that I have 1 revision policy, that I won't respond to text at midnight, that our scope is only 1 song. And you think that you have unlimited revisions. You can text me whenever you want, and that the scope is 15 songs. Now, we've never formalized it. It's not written anywhere. There's no trace of this other than maybe in passing you go, yeah, dude, I want you to work on my record. And I'm like, yeah, dude, let's start. Right? That's not enough. That's not a business. That is a casual statement. But if there is nothing more than that, then you have said to me, we should work on my record, and I agreed. So like, if we were to really look at that situation, I did agree to working on your record. And you could argue that. And it's like, I don't want to get to the point where you go, here's the other 11 songs. And I'm like, whoa, dude, what? And it's like, well, you said that's cool. Like, why get there later? Or why at the first revision is the mixer getting upset at the artist for something they never spoke about? So boundaries are not only protecting your creativity, they're protecting your peace, they're protecting your business, they're protecting your rage even, it's protecting so much of you and so much of things going off the rails, because this is about protection, another form of care. You're protecting yourself and the other person. It's not a contract to protect just you. It is an agreement you're making together. The contract should be written together. 1 letter you write, 1 letter they write. Like, literally, if we could do that, I'd recommend it. It's like, what are we deciding? What are we coming to terms with? What are these terms? And does this person agree? You cannot do it. You don't need to. You don't need to formalize this at all. But I promise you that is a fast track to burning out. That's a fast track to things going wrong. And you'll regret it until you hopefully learn that that's not the right way of doing things, and that there needs to be some formality, and the formality isn't like a weapon. The formality is actually protection, and that's a big difference.
I have an extreme anecdote and
Great.
a personal thing that you might disagree with me on, or you might agree with me on. I'm not sure. You said the boundaries are for protecting yourself and formalizing the agreement. I love that. Here's an extreme example, something that actually I don't talk about quite often because it did leave a very traumatic experience for me. When I first moved to LA, I had a client who was paying me an agreed amount of money per hour to record him. I could not work with this client anymore. I passed him off to my assistant. I, as you know, possibly his mentor, should have clarified that he needs to communicate and set up these boundaries and agreements a little bit more, but I didn't. I thought he would take care of it. Whatever. I didn't think about it. He then proceeded to record this client over the course of like 2 to 3 weeks for dozens of hours. At the end of the session, by the way, the client is a friend of mine personally and is a friend of my assistant through me, right? So they're friends outside of the studio as well. At the end of the dozens of hours, my assistant then goes, my excommunicated assistant, dishonorably discharged assistant, then said, "Oh, by the way, it's been $25 an hour the entire time."
Right.
Which makes sense. Like, you shouldn't, as the client, expect to be paid or expect to get this for free. But because there was no communication, or because of whatever, and possibly due to the malicious intent of the person, the client receiving the services, it could have been malicious, right?
Sure.
He actually ended up, I had to call the police because he ended up giving us major death threats. And it became it became like an actual incident. And there's 2 things that I want to take away from this. One is, if you don't protect yourself, and I'm talking like legally and business ethics, I think that if the producer or the engineer doesn't bring up their own boundaries to the client before they start, then it is on them. It's their fault. It's what they have to eat, the meal that they ate it. Like, if you didn't formalize the agreement before, and not over the phone, because that's not written down, you need to text what the agreement is if you talked on the phone, right? Or email it just to have it on paper, to have record of the agreement. If you do not have that, and they try to either accidentally or even worse, maliciously take advantage of that, that is on your fault. And you have to take 100%. That. That's something that I ethically believe in. Like, it's my responsibility to set up the boundaries. Number 2, this is a big deal. That's theft. Like, to me, the dishonorably discharged assistant who did that and didn't set up the agreements verbally beforehand, maybe I should have taught him that. I should have passed it off a little bit better. Sure, I'll acknowledge that. But since he did that, and he didn't talk about the uncomfortable thing, which it is uncomfortable at many times, is to talk about money at the beginning, I think him talking about the end is borderline theft. Like, I think that is extremely unethical.
Yeah.
And downright
he could have said it's $1 million.
It's
like, what's the limit?
And more importantly, regardless of the amount at that point, even if it was like, I don't know, like, it's just, what customer at that point is going to be like, I'm okay with this? Yeah. Unless it was way below what they were expecting. Sure. But like that, like out of that outlier scenario. Yeah, like it got to the point where he sent death threats. So like that's how big of a deal it was for him. Because now it's been weeks and dozens of hours.
I love this because this isn't a joke, and it is money, and it again is another form of care to be like, hey, I know this money thing is hard. I'm going to get this. Here's a great tip for people is learn to just upfront the money conversation as early as possible. So it's like, hey, DK, like before we even get into this talk about production, I just wanted to mention the way, like I price between, $1,500 to $3,000. I have like 3 tiers, let's say $1,500, $2,000, and $3,000. At $1,500, I offer this, I offer that, I offer that. Is this a range that you can pay within? If I accept the money up front only, is this something you can do? because I don't want to have a longer conversation before, I don't want to get into all this and then for you to be kind of sticker shocked. So I just want to tell you this up front. That is a great way to just get to the truth and the facts and get all the BS out of the way and not weaponize price, because what a lot of people do is they'll just talk and they'll vibe and then expect, because they were so cool and nice, that this person is going to agree to whatever they say. That's not how it works. So why not just get it out there up front? It's like, this is the thing I'm after. This is how much I charge. Is this something that you're interested in? You don't go into the Apple store and be like, well, I don't want to pay that, but I still want the phone. It's like you're aware of what the phone costs. And then you go in being like, well, I could get this phone, or that phone. There are tiers and I've decided on this one and that's what I'm going to pay. And I'm privy to their terms. You can't just be like, Apple, I'm going to pay you whenever I want, unless they say, okay, here's a payment plan. We have something for that. So like, I think the agreements need to be shaped, structured. That kind of gets into like pricing, gets into tiers, gets into packaging, gets into money modeling. There's a lot here actually. And I cover this and we do a whole day of really like developing the enormity of what you're offering. But at the very simplest form for the engineers that are just like, I do it bespoke every time. My price fluctuates every time. Terrible idea. However, get it all in writing, exactly what you're doing. Write down exactly what you are doing, what you're not doing. I once produced a podcast and we worked on this contract for literally 2 weeks, back and forth with the client. And I was like, it's all good. It was a very expensive project. And I go, they're paying me a lot of money. They're going to expect a lot. Let's make sure that's on paper. So we get it all on paper. They sign, I sign, we start working. And then they go, yeah, so like, we're thinking that like you should also do like the social media posts as well and like post to it and whatever. And I go, that's not part of what we agreed on. Well, they go, yeah, but like, why can't you just do it? And I was like, because that's a lot of work and time and whatever. I go, I'm more than happy to adjust the agreement, make a new one, whatever we need. But like, it wasn't what we agreed on. And they were like, okay, we learned for next time. Next time we definitely want to include that. I said, awesome. We could figure that out when we get there. But this time it's not in there. I knew that social media needed to exist. I also knew that I didn't want to do it. And so that's in there. Now, I told them about social media. Initially, they had actually said, we have someone, they'll do it, that's fine. But then when it came down to the moment, they forgot that conversation. And if it wasn't in writing, they would have been like, well, you said back then that you would do it. And then what do I do? No, I didn't say that or whatever. Another great example recently is I recently changed the prices of my products. And someone signed up for a discovery call when I was in the transition from one price to another. So we get on the call. This is like $4,000 difference. But we get on the call and hold on. Let me actually do the math here. It was $2,000. Okay, $2,000 difference. Regardless, it's still money. It's real money, right? We get on the phone and I noticed in the calendar event that the booking said the old price. And I was like, I have to own this. Like, it's in writing. He agreed to this term. If I want this gig, I cannot bait and switch $2,000 extra on this call. That's just not ethical. What I can do, and what I did do, is say, hey, I just want you to know, I just realized there was a discrepancy on the price, and I don't want to charge you more for it. I do want you to know that this program actually has changed. It is more expensive. The program is different. You're actually ending up getting more for your money as a result. It's a win on your end. But I just want to let you know that if you see a price discrepancy, like, I am not charging you for it. Now, there's a benefit to even doing that, being upfront and honest. But I also had to eat $2,000 at the end of the day. And that's real money, but one that I'd rather do than be like, hey, by the way, it's $2,000 more. And you're already on the call. So are you going to do this or not? You know what I mean? Like, that is not the way.
Oh, it's
not
gross.
the way.
It feels gross.
Exactly. And I just go, I'd rather not feel gross about it, And so this is real stuff. I deal with it every day, all the time. The tighter you can make things, the better. You will be happier as a result.
Nice. One quick word of challenge in your own thoughts here. We're going back to the pop psychology term of boundaries a little bit, which is, as you can tell, quite different from what we're talking about, but similar. I interviewed a mastery engineer, famous mastery engineer. I'm going to name him. His name is Dale Becker. You've probably heard of Dale Becker.
He's a homie.
multi-Grammy winning, huge dude. Hung out with him. And I basically asked him, like, it was like post-COVID, like 2023, 2024. Maybe this is just hot on his mind, and he was being a contrarian. No, maybe possibly knowing that I had a podcast, something like that. But I said, he's like, what's one advice that you'd give to anybody that's like seeking to do something like what you're doing? And he's like, you know how there's been a lot of talk about boundaries and, and not being overwhelmed? And he's like, well, if you want to be great and get to the level of being the top in the world, you can't think about boundaries too soon. Sometimes you have to loose up your boundaries. What do you think about that?
That's a great point. And I think boundaries, there are so many of them. I started drawing an image of a fence as you were saying boundaries, because the metaphor I would like to use is a fence. Now, a fence could be jumped over. There was a really dope fence in my neighborhood, my next door neighborhood. There was a little hole so we can get to the other block like really easily and see our other friends. Boundaries are not always a, concrete 200-foot wall, okay? There should be flexibility, because sometimes the contract you made and the agreement you made needed to shift. Now, it's a decision around what happens during that shift, and it's also what things are you willing to let pass. There might be things that take you an extra 5 minutes to do. It's not really worth having a conversation about rewriting boundaries. But if there's 25 things that keep happening, maybe that's worth having a conversation. If this is a project that you maybe have points on, that is a major label project, this is a client that's been here working with you dozens of times, that you've done really fast projects with and you've taken a long time on some projects with, there's moments where you need to be looser for sure. This is the humanity angle again coming into play, is like, all right, we made this fence, but we actually added a little door for our neighbor who we're friends with to come through. You know what I mean? It's like, where will you be flexible? That is going to define your service. I mean, that's going to define your ethos, your business. It's also going to define your bottom line. If you're like, I have tons of clients when we do the role playing around price, I go, yeah, this is too expensive. And they go, yeah, all right, I'm willing to give you like 50% off. And I was like, whoa, dude, like 50, like, where did you get that number from? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And it was like, okay, that's like a boundary that you made that you didn't even consciously make. You know what I mean? But like, know what your limits are. It's okay to know what your limits are and have them. And look, if that means losing a project, that might be the cost of some really big limits you're putting. That's a learning. I wouldn't say go into it with no limit. I would say go into it with boundaries that you're willing to be flexible on, especially when you're starting, because you don't know the boundaries you need. Like you might say, I only do one revision. And it's like, well, that's not realistic for pretty much any project. So like, that's a bad boundary to have. And if the first project, they're like, well, you just sent it back, like only one band member was able to listen. Like you need to be learning in that moment, And a lot of what I'm saying are rules and laws and codes and whatever, but it's like, to develop that, you need to practice it out in the world and be receptive and responsive to how that's being received. Now, sometimes people don't like boundaries at all and don't like to be restricted at all and just want to take advantage of you. Be perceptive of that too. There's a lot of those. But you also need to be somewhat flexible. You know what I mean? If it's running you dry and you're not making any money anymore off the thing that like you had agreed on was like relatively simple, sure, you should have a conversation. But even in that conversation, maybe there's an agreement you can come to that's a negotiation.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
I'm trying to think of the segue into the last thing. And I'm thinking of like the example that we've talked about in previous episodes of this podcast is like, instead of offering half off, work harder. Or no, maybe that's not it. Like offer more. Offer more. Like people are too quick to negotiate themselves down. And instead be like, no, like give more, instead of lowering your price, give more value. But sometimes that value is not just straight up raw effort, which is number 14. Grinding harder is not the answer.
Oh, I learned this time and time again. I think that there's so much internet advice about grinding. It's sort of a word that's kind of popped into the zeitgeist of business ownership.
Come on, David Goggins is the man, dude.
Just keep running. Some people
I run for days.
Some people come from, situations where like he can't not be that. And that's rad. Like, it's cool. I hope he gets some help as well, but like, it's wild. He's an anomaly of a human, right? But I think like we all have different capacities. We all have different responsibilities. Our lives are not exactly the same as everyone else. And so to assume that like, Gary V's view of grinding, or, anybody, you can name any white male influencer who yells about grinding on the internet. They're all coming at it from different stuff, like whether they're like jacked up on like steroids or like, cocaine or Adderall or like whatever it is. Everyone's coming at it from different backgrounds that you're not even aware of. Or maybe they're just so wealthy and they have a team working behind them that you don't know about. So again, this is like multiple things. Grinding harder is not the answer, is like be cautious with the advice. I think that's a great way of concluding, is like be cautious with the advice you're getting, including mine. Don't just take everything I've just said, plug it in and be like, this is going to work. I'm not going to change anything other than the things he said, because there is so much I said today that is a nest of other stuff that we did not cover and we could not cover without going to like literally in 12-hour courses. Actually, it's now 24 hours of coaching. We still don't cover all this stuff. There is so much that requires practice, trying it out in the world, changing for one person, not changing for another, iteration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that like is behind all of this advice, that like implement these things, please. Look into these things, please. Work with me for sure. Love it. But also know that this is not like all silver bullet stuff where you like line up everything that was said, implement them, and everything will work out. And grind harder is also that thing. There are moments like right before my surgery I was going to be out of work for 3 months. I'm working on software. I'm working on coaching. I had to grind leading up to that because I couldn't leave clients halfway before surgery and just be like, all right, I'll see you in 3 months. That would not work. Also, the software I'm building, the software developer needed my attention and needed some things to work on before I was gone. So this was a period where I go, I just need to lock in and do the work. And it's not going to be great every day. And I'm not going to like love showing up. But there were many days I'm like, this just sucks. Like, I feel like I haven't seen my friends or done anything. Cool. But it was temporal. It was seasonal. It was for a very specific reason. What I'm talking about here is like, if every night you're just like up spiraling or you just like keep working on a mix for like 45 hours, like it's not making things better. If you have a clear plan in place and you're patient with yourself and know that things take time, because they do, grinding harder, you'll realize is just like, it's sort of this like arbitrary, artificial thing that we do to make it seem like we're making progress. And a lot of times, like grinding, if you were to look at what people are actually doing, it's not the work that gets more work. It's like, oh, I was grinding. I like redid my whole studio for no reason, or like, it's something like that. And it's like, okay, I just like downloaded like 25 new plugins. Like I'm grinding. And it's like, that is probably not the most valuable grinding or even necessary at all. So I think there is a time to grind. There is definitely necessity for that. There's a time to not. And your default mode shouldn't be just work more hours all the time. Work smarter, work with clear priorities, work with clear systems that you're improving and working within. And don't just sacrifice all the time. I think that's a concept that's gotten into the zeitgeist of the music industry where it's like, just sacrifice all the time. And I think even to Dale's quote, people might interpret that as like, I just got to sacrifice all the time.
Yeah.
And it's up to you, but you have to know the trade-off you're making, a life of sacrifice away from what are you sacrificing when you're making that sacrifice is really important. So, check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they say.
So to be overly reductive and to recap and summarize, tell me if I'm saying this incorrectly. The important part about working hard is alignment and direction. Sometimes at the beginning of our careers, we have very little direction. We might just have this episode of the podcast if you're so fresh. And you only have like 3, 4, 5 different practical things to work off of. And if that's all you have, you should put in the effort to do that. But like, again, use as much direction, look for direction, right? And purpose possibly. The second thing is optimal combination is extreme direction and alignment with hard work, right? That's the same thing with like possibly David Goggins or even with Gary Vee. It's like they have a whole team telling them like how to be most effective with their time. So if they're working 80 hours a day, those 80 hours aren't just like tapping their pen, figuring out what should I do next and brainstorming. No, the team is brainstorming for them. They're effective. So if you have systems, right, something that we've talked about, or like a way to focus that work. I mean, I think like systems combined with hard work is great, but like it's directionless and like uncertain hard work. I wonder if there's more to that. That will more likely lead to self-hatred and burnout. And am I getting that right? Is there something you disagree with what I said?
Yeah.
Or more nuanced?
Just to add a metaphor to people, like put your car in neutral and hit the gas. Like I think a lot of people are doing that. They're like, I'm so busy. I DM every single person that follows me. Everyone's so busy. I don't know half of these people or more. They're not like, I don't know what they're working on. And then when we dive in, it's like they're so busy, but they've done 5 songs this month. So I don't know how they're busy because that shouldn't take that long. So you have to question what is so busy. And to me, that is your car is at neutral. You're hitting the gas. There's noise. You're pressing, but it's not moving. And so it's like, are the moves you're making moving the business forward? Or are you just stuck in neutral, kind of doing a lot of the same things you have or all of the same things? There's no new learning that's moving you forward. There's no changes that are moving you forward. If that's happening, that's the issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think the point that you talked about where you redirected to learning, and I think that goes across the board from like the most advanced mixers. Like the most advanced mixers that kind of get burnt out and tired are also like they've stopped learning. That's a typical common thing. There's nothing forward progression movement that they no longer feel, which isn't true. There isn't nothing to learn. There probably is. They just haven't been looking for it. And then the same thing for like the most beginner mixer as well. It's like working hard is picking up a book and taking the time to learn and get direction is also a form of hard work. I would assume as well. And whether that's through this podcast because we're awesome, or whether that's through Michael's courses. Obviously, that's his entire thing is he helps these mixers of all stages get and find their own customized direction, right? And let's end it off with that. This has been an awesome episode. I'm probably going to do 2 parts. I've already said this to you off camera.
Yeah.
This was way longer than I expected. This was way more nuanced and significantly more helpful than I expected. I don't know what I was expecting, but this was above my expectations. This is fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And with that, I want to say, you got to check out Mike. Obviously, you're on Instagram. You can check him out. You could DM him. Just imagining all the listeners taking advantage of any free advice you're willing to DM them since you also gave up that you DM everybody that follows you. Don't do that. Don't be a dick.
Well, I set boundaries. Don't worry.
Yeah. Good. He won't respond. That's up to him. I'm teasing. But lastly, you can go to Michael's website. It's super simple. mjm.earth. mjm.earth. And he's got a special discount for anybody that's listening. If you go through all the different offerings, he's got some free offerings. He's got some like PDF type easy offerings, just some like blueprints. He calls it the blueprint. Obviously the courses, the solo courses and coaching. And then there's also different types of group coaching. It's whatever. There's something that he's got called the Accelerator Bundle, which is basically his paid for blueprint along with a 90-minute phone call, like a private one-on-one phone call to kind of talk about systems, how to raise rates with confidence and grow sustainably. You know what he's done? If you go to his website, mjm.earth, go to the Accelerator Bundle specifically, and type in the code MMPOD, he will take off the discount and basically give you the blueprint for free. So you're only paying for the call, and which is extremely kind of him. As you can tell from this entire long episode, that's hopefully Dee Kei has done the extra work to split it up into 2 parts because it'd be more effective if he did. This obviously, Michael is very knowledgeable, very passionate, and has worked very hard at effectively communicating, listening and effectively communicating specific pressure points for each individual that he comes across and works with from a place of practical business mindedness. All right. So go check that out. And thank you once again, Michael, for creating this, one of my favorite episodes immediately off the rip that we've done in a while. Any last words that you want to say before we sign off?
I just want to thank you. And, I gave you your flowers earlier, but again, just thank you for, giving me this space to kind of share about what I do, to educate a community of people that we're both really passionate about educating. Thanks for creating this space. Thanks for giving me the time and space to do it on this episode. And for just being such a rad dude that is so down to meet people and really open your heart to them. So I really appreciate it.
Of course. I've worked really, really hard to do that. So I accept your gratitude deeply. All right. On that note, thank you so much for listening. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.